Last time, I took the FD to the track for its maiden voyage. The car felt amazing. I set a respectable benchmark PB and had a blast. However, as you do with any shakedown testing, I ran into a bit of an issue, which sadly cut my day short. Since then, the car's had some time off the road for basic servicing and some other improvements. In this episode, I'll provide insight on each area that needed remedy, along with other key updates. But most importantly, is the car ready for another track day? G'day guys, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you're well. It's been so long. How long? 8 months. 8 months since my last video. That's poor form. So I'll put my hand up for that. But look, you know, with a young family and work commitments, stuff in between that, you know, there's not a whole lot of time to pick up a camera and get out and take the car out and get some content. So it's a little bit tricky, but look, moving forward, I will up that game, I promise. Look, just wanted to very quickly provide you with the purpose of this video. Really, I've captured some footage historically over the last months, and it's all done in bits and pieces. I've grabbed a whole bunch of footage and collated it, and you'll see some of the things that have been going on, which include basic servicing, replacing some really important components in the car, some dramas that have happened. So yeah, just a variety of things that's happened since, but again, I've been filming in bits and pieces. Moving forward, I've actually got a couple of modifications that are to come very soon, so I'll be hopefully uploading within a very sort of a shorter time frame and sharing that with yourselves. So I've got that, and I've also got a track day, or I should say shakedown number 2 track day at Luddenham, since I've sort of rectified all the issues now. So you'll see that in a moment, but look, the other thing that I wanted to say is I really appreciate all the likes, the comments, and yourselves as subscribers. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. I really appreciate it, and every time I see a new subscriber, it just gives me more drive and encourages me to make more content. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate it. Hope you enjoy the footage, and hopefully I'll see you very soon. Right, so in terms of the oil catch can issue, which I've now remedied, as you can see right there, that's the positioning of it in the engine bay. It looks quite stealthy. You know, in terms of the packaging side of things, it's just really just the stainless steel finish that sort of gives it away, but I still think it's quite clean. I had this done at a place called Pure Fab Fabricator in Sydney, and he's pretty well renowned, I guess, in the performance car / racing scene or circuit scene. And yeah, as you can see, it's pretty clean. The welds are nice and clean. He's made some good use of custom brackets to make it all fit nice and snug. As you can see, it's very close to everything, but I assure you it's not hitting anything, so that was part of the requirements. But yeah, in terms of capacity and how much you could hold, I'd say probably about 600 mils to a litre worth of oil / fluids that sort of can be held in this area. You obviously can't see the depth of it, but yeah, it's a bit of a rectangular shape, and it sort of goes downwards. But as you can see, AN fitting lines all around, braided. So yeah, in terms of, let's call it the inlet where it's coming from is obviously the, I don't know if you can see that there, but the oil filler neck has a little nipple here, and we've basically drawn out a hose that goes underneath the upper intake manifold around here, and that's all held together again with some nice brackets and whatnot, so it's held quite firm, it doesn't move around into there. And obviously this is all baffled, so when it's, you know, the car's at the track and it's sloshing around and moving around, there's you know, no spillage, so to speak. This is all sealed nice and tight. And then the sort of outlet of this comes back underneath the intake, the airbox, and back through, and then feeds back into the intake. So, you know, technically this is the right way to do it. It's illegal. But I shouldn't see any residue or that sort of thing come through in the engine bay, or if it does, the worst case scenario, it just sort of gets sucked in the air cleaner. But yeah, overall I'm quite happy with it. Of the very little driving that I've done so far, I haven't noticed any blow-by. I've got a feeling that you know, that sort of will be made known to me once I'm at the track again. The other thing is I've changed to a slightly thicker oil. So I was running a thinner oil, but now I've sort of changed that to a thicker viscosity. I don't know if that will have any bearing on how much blow-by I might get, but the way I would drain it is just screwing that off, and I've got like a suction pump thingy, like it's a manual thing. I could just extract it from the top, as opposed to just, you know, what I originally wanted with draining it from the bottom. So yeah, unfortunately, given the nature of the location of it, I've had to do some thinking and plan how this would all work. But all in all, yeah, quite clean, custom. It won't move around. It's good quality, so quite happy with it. It doesn't look like much, but in essence, here are all the bushings. I've got a combination of diff bushings, the A-arm, double A-arm bushings, end links, and larger, one of the long rear arm, upper arm or lower arm bushings there. And obviously the Cusco sway bars. So yeah, obviously I don't have all of the bushings for the rear that I need, but the plan is to have the suspension workshop have a check and see exactly what's worn out, and figure out what needs replacing. So obviously they're going to replace what I've got, but if there are others that are out, then I might have to go with like something like Hard Race, which is an Australian manufacturer, just to replace everything. Because while I'm there, I think I'm just going to get everything done. I'm not going to stuff around.
I took the car to DNA Autosport, who specialise in all things suspension tuning. I'm always impressed with the calibre of cars that I see each time I'm here, both street and track applications, from JDM, Euro and American Muscle. Now in my case, after the car was thoroughly inspected, it turned out that the OEM bushings I supplied were exactly what was needed to replace perished items. In other words, there was no need to source additional parts. With that said, the looseness and thumping noises coming from the rear of the car are all gone. Also, the Cusco sway bars have made a noticeable difference with regards to how the car behaves in corners. Whilst a simple modification, it's such a game changer. The car's turn-in is direct, and the overall steering feel has improved dramatically. With that said, I think a fair evaluation will be determined once the FD is pushed to its limits at the track. So not too long after my drag racing adventure, whilst enjoying the car on a weekend drive, I noticed that my secondary turbo suddenly stopped working, and the car's idling was slightly off. I immediately knew that it was the commonly known twin-turbo solenoid issue. Now, being the JDM golden era, 20-year-old turbo technology that it is, there's much complexity around how the twins function. Coupled with that, is the variety of rubber hoses and plastic valves which have been exposed to considerable heat soak over the many years. So it's understandable that something like this eventually occurs. Now, the interwebs contain a lot of info around how painful and dreaded this exercise is, but in all honesty, in my case, it wasn't too bad. Being a Series 8, the solenoid box is a single unit item, which basically means that it's pretty much a bolt-off, bolt-on affair, with the upper intake manifold having to come off. So I made sure to take my time, label everything, and after triple checking absolutely every component was correctly installed, I followed up with a minor service. So after sitting for a while, she was finally ready to go. I took her out and stretched her legs. Now, if you're a distinguished gentleman like myself who enjoys the magnificent hissing sound derived from a turbo, or perhaps two turbos, then grab some headphones and turn it up. So this here is the gymnastics routine I perform each time I take the car out. Is it annoying? Is it stressful? Yes, and yes. And the thing is, the car isn't even that low. In fact, only 1 centimeter lower than the OEM settings, keeping the factory rake. In saying that, since installing the Auto XC front lip, admittedly it has made this process quite challenging. The other factor is the valving on the Shockworks suspension being tuned towards the softer side of things. In other words, there's a decent amount of travel or compression, even though the spring's fairly firm at 12 kgs. Now, I had planned to swap out the existing springs with firmer items, or at the very least adjust the spring preload. However, speaking to the manufacturer and DNA Autosports, sadly this wasn't an option. Safe to say, I've now mastered getting up and down from my awesome driveway. But I have got it wrong in the past, actually on 2 separate occasions, and it wasn't pretty.
Right, so in terms of the damage that's been done here, effectively, you know what, not a whole lot. There's obviously a bit of kinking or like an unnatural look at a certain spot in the guard right there, which I guess when the guy that came out who repaired it, he mentioned that, you know, I wasn't going to get 100% finish just because the nature of where it is and the fact that this little lip underneath here, it's hard to sort of get behind that and rectify or fix it effectively. But for what it is, Thankfully the paint didn't crack. I'm very happy about that. But these things happen, and it's all because of the dampers being a little bit too, I don't know, do I say soft? But there's a lot of travel in them, and hopefully by changing the front spring, maybe that might help with compression, because the driveway that I've got is a bit of a nightmare driveway, where the road meets the angle of the driveway. The car compresses on the front driver's side quarter. So yeah, that's where I'm at, but look, fingers crossed, no more damage moving forward. It's an exciting time to be alive, you know, with regards to planning all the next mods with the car. I've sort of secretly been acquiring some parts, and I've sort of been sitting on them for quite a while, but this next round of modifications will focus on a combination of reliability, but also interior seating, especially for when visiting the track and having fun at the track. So yeah, let me show you the next line of mods that I've got in mind, which will sort of happen sooner rather than later. I'll start with the seat and I'll move on to the shiny stuff. So this here is a bit of a work of art. It's from a Japanese manufacturer called Kame Corns, also known as Corns. And you're thinking, why the heck would I be installing a product that should be made for MX-5 into the FD? Well, the sort of simple answer is that they share a lot of similarities. Specifically, the FD has a very narrow cockpit, and a lot of seats don't work, or a lot of seats foul or hit the interior panels of the car, namely the side bolsters. They hit on the door, or they rub on the door. You can't close the door properly. I didn't want any of that problem. I just wanted something that was somewhat of a direct bolt-on that clears everything and doesn't stuff up my interior. So I went with the fixed back corn seat. Now, unfortunately, this wasn't spec to my liking. These guys sort of build these seats in batches, and you need to put an order through with, you could get different inserts and different color materials and different stitching, and the emblem can be in color and all that sort of thing. But I unfortunately, I guess, didn't want to wait, and I didn't want to miss out on this seat. There was a lot of uncertainty at the time when I purchased this seat. It was months ago. So I opted to go for something that they had already made, and this was like one of the cleanest sort of looking color combination. It's a simple, like a dark gray / black. This is like a nice suede material, feels quite nice, and I've got double red stitching throughout, and it has the black emblem there. Obviously I would have done things a little bit differently, but this is quite clean looking, and it will suit the interior of the FD quite a lot. This is actually a fiberglass item. What you could do is get carbon as well. Obviously, you need to spec that up and wait until they make it for you. But again, I didn't have the luxury of waiting or timing, so I decided to just jump on it. The seat feels quite light as well. I sat in it and it's quite narrow. Luckily, I'm not fat. I have a very thin waist. Unfortunately, a lot of people won't be able to fit in something like this. It's very similar to a Recaro Spirit R seat that's equipped in the FD from factory. It reminds me a lot of that in terms of like the look of it. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting that in. Along with that, I purchased these two side bolster protectors just because I know how sort of annoyingly difficult it is. You'll need to sort of grab onto these each time you get in the car. Over time, they wear out. So I just thought, you know what, I'll just try and keep it in good nick while I'm at it. In terms of the Bride rail, I ended up going with the Bride just because I know that they're a reputable brand and product. I've had Bride seats in my S15 in a previous life. Good quality. This is a LF, like super low. I'm not too sure what the term they give it, but it's a low rail. It's the LF version because it's built for fixed back seats and came with these beautifully made side brackets. Everything bolts on nice and easy. And yeah, I mean, there's not more else to it. Obviously it is adjustable. I wanted to keep that adjustability. Didn't want to mount it to the floor like others do. I just want to sort of keep it as somewhat as comfortable as possible. So yeah, that's going to be going in relatively soon. I'll be sure to run through that process and show you how this compares to the factory seat in terms of dimensions and how it sits and their overall final product. There's not a lot of info on these online. Like, I haven't seen many pics or any pics at all actually of these in an FD. So, you know, I'm aiming to change that hopefully, and if someone is sort of thinking about going down that path, then hopefully I'll be able to help you out. Moving on, so really I think in terms of context, this should have been in the car already. In this last round of mods that I've done, I should have installed that, but you know, unfortunately life sort of gets in the way and things get a little bit busy, so I wasn't able to do it. I purchased it and just sat on it for quite a while. In essence, PWR, very well known Australian manufacturer for cooling products. This is a 42mm, I believe, radiator. This is a direct drop-in or bolt-on item, so it utilizes the factory position of the OEM radiator and all the mounting areas as well, so I don't need to bend, cut, drill or do anything to the chassis or wherever it mounts to. I've personally had good experience with PWR products. I've got the intercooler, the dual core intercooler in the car at the moment, and obviously I just wanted to keep everything the same, and you know, you can see the quality of the beads there. This is very sort of nice and clean. So yeah, that's the radiator. Coupled with that, I purchased this thermostat by Billion, which is a Japanese manufacturer. Opens up at 71 degrees Celsius, so this will ensure optimal cooling temperatures for the car. This will just sort of allow the coolant to flow through the radiator at a lower temperature. Theoretically, these should lower the coolant temperatures when I'm on the track giving the car a hard time, or even just driving on a street on a hot day. I mean, I already drive the car like on, you know, high 38 degree, 35 plus degree days, and I've got no problem, but this will further help that, especially when abusing it for prolonged periods of time. I just thought whilst I was at it, I ended up getting the OEM factory rubber upper and lower radiator hoses, just because, you know, by this time they're pretty old. And again, in the whole theme of the car is to replace OEM items, but, you know, with a plus, OEM plus, if you want to call it that. So yeah, cooling definitely needs to happen as well, but the first point of call will be the seat, just because I want to get the car ready for its next shakedown. The temperature here in Australia is getting cooler, so you know, the winter track season, all that sort of thing is getting close. So yeah, exciting times, and looking forward to getting onto these.